So joining me on the panel today, we've got Sean Rooney, Head of Service, Highways and Road Safety at Oxfordshire County Council. We've got Matt Townsend, Director of Highways and Transport at Lancashire County Council. We've got Sam Lee, Senior Innovation Officer at Transport for Greater Manchester. And we've got Grish Lohani, Highways Engineer at Wiltshire Council. Now, this is a session where it could all go completely wrong because we're going to start using the tech. And it's probably the session that I'm least prepared for, but that's because I know these guys like to talk and they'll quite happily have a chat through the next half an hour. So we're going to start the session with a couple of quick Slido questions for the audience. As I mentioned in the last session, we really want to test and keep kind of validating all the data that we're collecting. So Charlotte is going to move the screen on for us. I think, can you do it one more, Charlotte, please? So hopefully you can read that, and we've got two separate questions, one for public sector and one for private sector. So what we're looking to do is we want to ask, where is your organisation's focus on innovation adoption? And if you could join the Slido and answer those questions, we should hopefully get some live results. Ah, there you go. Thank you. So I think based on I am actually really glad that you weren't just going to try and throw me off what I've just said in that last report and answer the radical question just to kind of give us something different to talk about and have to think on my feet. But that is exactly, I think, how we were expecting that question or hoping that that question would come out. If we can move it across now, Charlotte, and move that to the private sector question, please. Again, it's exactly the same question, and if people would answer that and choose where the organisation's focus is, that would be great. Can you guys in the panel see that on your screens as well? Thank you. And I think that was that was the answer we were expecting to see and kind of hoping to show that difference between public and private sector. And then finally, we've got one more question, please, Charlotte. And this is a question for everybody to answer. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So now that we've asked those two questions, we can get back into the panel session and we can start to have our discussion around that subject between incremental innovations and radical innovations. So I'm going to go to Sean first. Sean, from the Slido results that we got there, is that what you expected to see?
Yeah, I think so, because I think there's a bit of a disjoint perhaps in terms of what the private sector are willing to offer and what the public sector are willing to accept. And I think that's something that we need to discuss in terms of, how do we overcome those differences? How do we get to the stage where we're totally aligned? I mean, there's some really good, data within the innovations report that we can really drive forward as a whatever small input I can put in as an advisory board member. It's really data rich in terms of understanding what the councils want, but importantly what the private sector want and what they are able to do. So the results don't surprise me, but I think what it does show is there's still work to do to bring that link together. And I think, from a positive perspective, we're all here. I mean, this is a pretty good turnout for the morning after the Galleon for those that went to it. The appetite is there. The collaboration, which is a founding principle of what LCRIG is all about. And I think that we can do it, but it's going to take time.
And Sean, where we have seen successes in driving those more disruptive and radical innovations, is that down to internal culture and effective change management, do you think?
I think definitely in terms of internal culture, because again, you look at people around the room and you've got, it's sad to say, sometimes it's the same faces. But I think there's been a real cultural shift this round. You know, this is the highest attendance for LCRIG this year, isn't it? 500 and odd people. And that is really, really testament to, you know, what the sector, private sector, public sector, is looking to achieve. I think the internal culture is something that we need to do. We can only change that culture by the brilliant communication that we need to have. And I think, you know, that's part of how do we move forward from that internal culture and that effective change management. You know, as a public sector officer, change, I always say, change is the only constant that's in my career. You know, and that's quite true. We're very used to change, but we're also, we're quite apathetic at times in terms of change. So how do we move this forward? That internal culture, we've got the individuals. You know, I look at people, Ian from Blackpool, who chairs the Innovations Board. You've got Martin Duffy, who's been around a year or two in terms of that and seen innovation from, you know, I think the red flag was still being waved in front of some of the vehicles before Martin. I know and love Martin well, so hopefully he's not offended by that. But we need to expand it in terms of, you know, people such as Grish and the, Kerry, you mentioned it yesterday, how brilliant, how splendid the youngsters, and I can say youngsters because I'm an old fat git, that are coming through. And I think that's what we need to do. Drive that culture from within, drive that culture from, you know, the youth that's coming through, the skills. I know we're talking about skills later on and what have you, but that is a real passion of mine, is that we haven't got the skills because there are far too many grey-haired filing cabinets, as I call them, and there's not enough digitally adept people to actually drive that innovation forward.
No, and you know what, Sean, just to echo what you said there about the young people we saw yesterday, they were absolutely fantastic, and
Absolutely.
I'm still blown away about how good those presentations were yesterday. Sam, when we spoke, you spoke about learning lessons from failure and also the benefits of working across different sectors when adopting innovation. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I can. I'm a bit of an imposter here because I'm a combined authority colleague, you know, trying to understand local authority colleagues. But I think there's a cultural aspect of it with failure. People see failure as a negative thing, but you look at private sector, they celebrate it. You know, when SpaceX, when something goes wrong, they celebrate the failure because they can learn a huge amount from, and that's something that I've been trying to distill into culture of next generation, that failing is not a bad thing. You know, when you have a project that fails and various things, you learn the most from them. You know, a project that goes well, you don't learn a huge amount. But I think that there's a lot to be said around sharing of failings as well. No one starts off wanting to fail, but actually, you know, things go wrong as project changes, environment changes, culture changes as part of that. But the key thing is being transparent and open about failures and what you're learning from it to other people. You know, so for us as a combined authority region kind of partner, we do a lot of stuff that goes wrong, and we shared that with everybody else that may be following in our footsteps. And as pathfinders, they don't hit the same pitfalls, and they identify kind of other solutions. Because sometimes it might fail for us, but might not fail for someone else. And I think just an additional example to add, we had the first dockless bike share in the UK called Mobike. It failed spectacularly. It was in the newspapers and everything else, and how bad it was. But it allows us to learn, you know, what a bike share scheme like that could do for a region of Greater Manchester. It helped us frame out the procurement for the future of the bike scheme that we have now, and all the support processes from antisocial behaviour to police support that's needed to make that happen. So in the media, it may have been looked very negative, but for us, it costs us absolutely nothing, and we'll learn a huge amount. On the area around sector side of things, I think, again, TFGM has been quite kind of lucky in terms of being able to work with wider Whitehall departments. So just two quick examples. One of the projects we're working on is around digital connectivity. We see suppliers and local authorities using technology, but it all requires that connectivity to get the data back for analysis. So we've been doing a project with the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology to say, well, what is the connectivity that's required to support some of these services? You know, what are the cyber consideration and resilience consideration we need to put into place to support some of that? And, you know, and that particular project, the focus wasn't about the solution for transport. The focus was around decarbonisation, around how connectivity and data can help us decarbonise both how we operate our transport network, but also in the areas around residential heat pumps, where these sensors were put in to understand how they were getting utilized. But all that is required kind of based on connectivity. And then the final point on this is energy is going to be the big factor that we need to all consider going forward. We are going through a process of electrifying all our buses. That requires a huge amount of energy. Governments are pushing data centers and other things. Again, energy required. As we move towards that decarbonisation and kind of focus, what are the data sets that we need to make strategic investments and decisions around energy infrastructure? To support rail, to support bus, to support roads, kind of going forward. So again, we're looking at that at a regional level with the Department of Energy and Science and Net Zero. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Sam. And Matt, from your perspective, disruptive or radical innovation, it's not always about a new product or a new piece of technology, but could be a rethinking in the way things are done. Tell us a little bit about the change you've implemented in Lancashire and whether you would class this as a category of more radical change.
I think you're right. I think we often think it's this new thing, innovation, it's this new thing out of a box, or it's something new, or it's AI, or it's a new toolkit, or something like that. And actually for me, it can just be taking something we already do and doing it better, doing it differently, trying to change the things we do to be more efficient, to deliver better outcomes for our residents. So from a Lancashire point of view, what we have is a fantastic team, to be fair, in Lancashire, that are at the heart of everything we do, and credit to them. So Lancashire, we have one of the biggest road networks in the country. Last year we had about 90,000 defects across the country, probably road defects across the country. And the team, our fragmented approach before then was going out to a number of different contractors to fix these things. We were doing some in-house as well. And what we said was, why are we contracting in that way? Why are we doing this? Why are we getting loads of touch points, loads of failure points? We don't have one common set of data. So the team come up with an idea to be able to do something different. They use the LCRIG framework to be able to procure something. So plug for the LCRIG Innovation Framework, the DPS. And we looked at how do we procure a system where we got some of our repairs done quickly, more efficiently, in a data-driven way. So, but what we also wanted from that, and I say we because it was certainly the team that did this, we wanted a better outcome as a result of it. We wanted a warranty for those works. We wanted that innovation at the heart of what we do. We wanted to work with a partner that was open to change and doing it. And I think in the normal procurement rules, it doesn't really allow that. Everything we do in this sector is a bill of quantities or a schedule of rates. It's a contract early warning. It's a difficult conversation. And we wanted a space where we could test something new and have a bit of a test bed for new ideas, new innovation. So we let a contract and we took everything we did and we gave it to somebody else and said, the constraints we put on them was we wanted a price that was open and transparent. And we said, here's our KPIs, you manage the end-to-end process for us. And what we've got is, we award the contract to Multivo, we've got all these defect repairs across the county, and we're now delivering better outcomes in a right first time fix. And not only is it a right first time fix, because you say, oh come on Matt, we're doing that for years in roads, get a grip. The contractor stands over it for 12 months. So if something happens in that 12-month period, it's not Matt sending somebody back, the contractor is incentivised to deliver the right outcomes, to deliver the right thing for the people of Lancashire. We're currently, delivering a right first time fix of about 95% across the county. And we know from a failure rate, we talk about failure, the system we've created around it means that those things are inspected, those things are checked, and we welcome the opportunity for failure. We welcome that space to be able to go, what has gone wrong, and not lots have gone. We tried some new machinery. You saw at the LCRIG Innovation Festival, that repair rejuvenate, that all-in-one machine, that was on the ground in Lancashire. We've been trialling that. We're open to new ideas and new ways of working. And certainly from an organisational point of view, I think it's unleashed people to be able to go, God, we can have a go at that. What is there, create a space for us to be able to do that.
And that ties in really nicely with Grish's question, which is that Grish is at the opposite end of the scale, in that your authority is just starting to dip your toes into areas of innovation adoption. And Grish, is that support from suppliers and contractors who are helping with this? And what have you learned from your experience so far?
We're working with the contractors who brings the latest technology to the industries and rely on the safety as well. It's recently, I think Wiltshire Council is the first one to recycle its road, which save the carbon emission. And then we use Wiltshire for road maintenance for the safety purposes, and the contractors like Carbon Tech for the drainage. So any contractors who brings the latest technology, so yeah, we rely on them, basically.
Thanks, Grish. And Sean, when we talk about disruptive technologies like AI, digital twins, or automated vehicles, how do we ensure that we don't leave smaller authorities behind, but instead we have the ability to scale innovation so that they're available for everyone?
I just want to start off by saying, how do we make sure that not just the small authorities, but how do we all move forward together? And I think it's an acceptance that innovation isn't scary. It's something that the world has been doing since, the Neanderthals picked up a bone and created an axe out of it, because they needed to develop something that was useful. So I'm not saying we're a bunch of Neanderthals, not all of us anyway, but it isn't scary. And I think the success of LCRIG, and I keep coming back to this because I'm really proud to be involved in LCRIG, and you do a grand job. You do all right, Kerry. And the rest of the team as well. But one of the things, let's not forget, Grish and I were talking earlier, we've got the regional groups. I'm really getting involved with that for those local authorities that are in the room. Get involved in those discussions. You're able to come to the Innovation and Learning Festival in July. You're able to come to these events. But we could probably fill this room 3 times over with those local authorities if we had things in place for the team side of things. Now, I think most of the regional groups are online, aren't they, Kerry?
They are, yeah.
So it's get involved in that, and again, it brings the knowledge base up from those smaller authorities that can't afford to send someone away for 2 days or haven't got the capacity. Grish has been, I think you've had a really successful couple of days. She had a brilliant speech yesterday. She got an award last night. She sat on the stage. I'll look forward to her presenting something next year and taking over from you, Kerry. So that's something to look forward to.
I'll hand it over to anyone.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. But I think get involved. Again, the innovation report, there's some real key themes from that. You talked about the 3 key themes of AI, connected vehicles, materials, etc. But let's not forget that a lot of us are dealing with highways, dealing with maintenance. AI, connected vehicles, absolutely imperative. But sometimes we need to focus on, what does it actually mean to me? So what? So why are you here? Why do you want to talk about AI? Why do you want to talk about connected vehicles? I just want to know what the latest black material looks like because I like the smell of it and things like that. So it's, how do we make sure that we bring all our, not just the smaller authorities, as I said, but going back to those, the youth of the highway sector is something that we need to encourage and give them the opportunity. You talk about, developing the National Innovation Network. You talk about the National Knowledge Network. That's going to be really, really important, and I think that's a really exciting way of doing things. But to be able to do that, you need to get involved. And you talked about Suzanne's 118, and just that picture of those 2 guys with the moustache and the red shorts and what have you in a t-shirt. I think me and Matt could be the 118s of LCRIG if you want. Now that's, if you haven't had your breakfast, that's probably put you up for your breakfast, so that's fine. But it is around about that, that learning. Don't just sit there and think, I don't know anything about it, I don't know what to do. There's one person that, and I was always told, if you're pointing the finger at someone, Duffy, it's your fault. And I'm sorry, it's just that you're in my eye line, Martin. I'm sorry, John, it's your fault. you know, you're pointing at someone, but you've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself. It's within your gift to do something. It's within your gift to learn. It's within your gift to empower the people that work with you that we need to see coming through the sector, to see the, you know, coming through the industry. Let them come to the events. Get involved in the regional stuff. Show them the innovation report. Show them the fact that there's something here that you can actually go in and find out, and not just the 118 thing. It's there. We've got all the tools to do it, but come back to the fact that innovation isn't scary. There's one thing, if there was one thing in the world, we could make a perfect world. It'll never be perfect, I know that, because 118 team. Communicate, speak to each other, ask questions, don't be afraid to ask. There's never a stupid question. You know, these questions here are brilliant, Kerry, you've done a grand job. But, you know, a simple question that, you know, I've been around 1 or 2 years, but someone who's just coming into the industry, what do you mean, what is tarmac? It may sound absolutely stupid to you, but if you just turn around to that individual that's asked that question, and you know, very early in the career, and you turn around, what do you mean? You know, and really have a go at them. You've put someone off their career for life. So think about the impact of communication. Think about the impact of what influence you as sector leaders have to those people that we're looking to drive that innovation forward. So an innovation, as Matt said, it's not necessarily something bright and shiny. Don't come to me as a contractor and say, I've got this brand new innovative product or what have you. I'll turn around and say, well, we've been using that 20 years ago. But come to me with an innovative way of doing things. So use that communication. It is in your gift, and I am rambling a bit, and you told me to shut up, and you never gave me a safe word, so I could go on forever.
I needed a signal to make you be quiet. But no, I think Sean, and I do just want to point out that Sean isn't getting paid commission for all these LCRIG plugs, but he is right. I think from LCRIG we can, you know, we're here to help and come to us if there's anything you need support in or any questions. We are a place where you can come, and you know, that's what we love to do the most is find out how we can help people. Grish, did you want to add something?
Just want to add something else. Son highlighted the importance of communication. I was talking to how recently we use a drone. One of our contractor, MJ Church, we only don't rely in-house contractor, but obviously some of the scheme, the biggest scheme, goes to the external contractor, and then they introduce the drone. And as I was talking to Sean, and some system might be the old for one authority, new for the authority, that might be already done by another authority. So it's how communication is important when one authority speaks to another authority and then try to bring more new technology into the sector. And talking about AIs, that's what Wiltshire Council is now trying to move forward with the AI technology. And yeah, communication is really important, and I really appreciate, like, you know, LCRIG organizing this, and I'm being a part of it, and talking to all authorities and seeing how the innovations with the new technology have changed the world.
Thank you. We're running a bit short on time, so I'm going to go to the next question, and Sam, I'm going to ask you to answer it fairly quickly, please. So one of the innovation report findings was that measuring the success of innovation, it can be quite difficult. So how do you go about measuring the success and demonstrate whether that innovation is delivering value or not?
I'll try to be quick as possible. But I think the whole point around measuring success is, can people hear me? Yeah. It's not necessarily just about measuring success for yourselves. It's also like partners you work with, right, private sector and others. I think there's a whole piece around you don't know what you don't know as well. You know, measuring success could just be being a smarter customer as part of that. And just some examples, just quickly on some of the successes we had with private sector. You know, we worked with Transport Research Lab on their Scoot kind of capability over the past 5 years, and you know, recently they've won the award and they're out now selling the product better. We are a smarter customer to know what the capabilities of their technology, and they're like created a smarter solution. You know, Vivasti again won the award last night. We worked with them from their infancy, you know, when they were doing work on buses and rail sector and other things. Again, you know, helping us to become a smarter customer, and that evidence fed into our procurement exercise to create a new framework of sensors that we procured. You know, happy for those to be shared with other authorities, right? So that we're not reinventing the wheel. And then the last one I just want to quickly highlight is around process innovation. We talk about the technology, but actually for some of this to stick, it has to be around systemic change on internal processes and how we do things. And what was quite interesting for the 5G project was we had the Founds Group supporting us on dealing with the private sector to ask some of the questions that we may not have been able to ask, or speaking directly with central government on questions that we may not be able to deal with. But yeah, all of it is about, you know, measuring the outcome on how we generate benefits from reducing costs and delivering more for less, and how we keep iterating. It just doesn't stop. It needs to be continuously looked at. You know, it's not, we can't no longer buy something for 20 years. We need to buy something that is, right, we can change it in the next 5.
Thank you. And Matt, last question from this session. So disruptive change, it often comes with risk. So how do you balance innovation with accountability to the public person road users?
I will answer that question, but I just want to pick up on Sean's point around communication. I haven't got a safe word either, Kerry. My 7-year-old thinks Daddy works on the roads, and she thinks he drives a gritter. That's what she thinks. She's no idea what I do. But when I have these conversations at her school about this is the things you can do in this sector, we can do something that makes a monumental difference over here 100 years beyond where we are. Designed a retaining wall 20 years ago, it's still there now, and I still drive past it thinking, God, I remember doing that. So I think we cannot over-communicate in this sector to bring people with us. So I think it's something. I think disruptive change comes with risk, but it's on us who's bringing forward the change, what they want to do, and it's about buy-in for me. And everybody can do this, whether you're a small council, a large council, a unitary combined authority, you can do this. It's about what do you want to do, what's your strategic intent, how are you going to performance manage it, and what stakeholder trust have you got? Have you got organisational buy-in for it? Have you got the governance wrapped around from a risk and reward point of view? Have you got elected members buy-in? Are they open? Are they listening to what you've got to say? Do they believe and buy into the story that what you're trying to do? And ultimately, it comes with time. In our sector, we do a lot of things the same way, and that's changing. But change is hard, and doing something different in a different way is hard because the system around us in local government is, right, you've got to go to scrutiny next Tuesday, what are you going to say? The report for Cabinet in 8 weeks' time has got to be in 8 weeks in advance, and all those things. So I think it takes the commitment of a great team of people that are dedicated and the space and willingness to deliver. And I think it takes each of us just to kind of go, well, I'd like to try that. Let's have a go at that. But I think for me, it also must be transparent, must be data-driven. And you've got to be willing to challenge the status quo, because if we're not doing that as people in our industry, you know, what else are we here for? And we can't lose sight of the fact that we've got to deliver for our residents. That's what we're all here for as public servants. We've got to deliver for the people that we serve.
Thank you. Now I've got one last question, which is for everybody on the panel, and just a couple of word answer. If you had a blank check and no procurement rules, what's the one innovation that you would implement tomorrow to improve local roads? Sean.
I will be brief. For DFT colleagues, I'll use one word, money, or 2 words, money and investment.
For me, no potholes.
Changing on how funding's done, so it's less capital, more revenue.
I shouldn't have asked this question. Matt?
I think for me, it is about funding, but I also look at what the things we have and how do we invest in the things we've got, and how do you leverage some of the investment funds. In the growth and regen space, we invest and all the time leverage pension assets and all those things. So how do you leverage those things for the highway maintenance? We know for every £1 you get put into road maintenance, you get £7 back. You give me a project across government, Lower Thames Crossing, £7 billion, that has got a BCR like that. So I think it's putting time into the investment, I think.
Sean, were you telling me about time, or did you have one more thing to say?
I have one more thing to say, if I will, because let's bring it back to this positivity. Let's think about why we're here. You said no issues with blank checks, yeah? No issues with procurement, no issues with technology. How can we improve local roads? I would look to see a multimodal shift in transport technology to be able to use a vehicle, reduce the number of vehicles on the road, and those vehicles on the road could act. They could be collecting data, they could be collecting live data in terms of condition, harsh braking. The technology's out there, and that system could then be linked into all our asset management systems, all our works program system, and at the press of a button we can come up with, we could go back to Tim or Molly and say, look, we've got this brilliant amount of data, so let's look to reduce the amount of vehicles on the road, give people the choice, give people the choice that they want to travel in a different way, because sometimes they don't, because that service isn't effective. So no money problem, no procurement problems, a smart vehicle that people walk into, no drivers, connected data, bish bash bosh, and loads of money.
Thank you.
Can we do it this time next year?
You check my notes from this conference. That's exactly what I want to do for our buses on our B network. So.
I could hardly hear that last bit, but I'm just going to say thank you to Sean for finishing it on that really positive note. And we've gone over by a couple of minutes, but I think it was really worth it for that last bit from Sean. So I'd like to say a huge thank you for our panel for taking part, for sticking into the time we had, because when I realised it was 30 minutes, I thought there's no way we're going to get 30 minutes with Sean speaking, but we've managed it. So please, can you, everyone, thank our panel.